where I served 13 and a half years in federal prison. Prior to my having served 13 and a half years in federal prison, during my formative years, when I was approximately 5 to 10 years old, both of my parents were incarcerated and they did federal time. So even before I kind of was directly impacted by the criminal justice system, I think that there was a vicarious impact in my life as a result of having lost my parents to incarceration. I had the very great benefit of being in the singular institution in the United States of America that offer the education prerequisites for individuals to become a credentialed alcohol and drug counselor. However, my experience is not indicative of the experiences of more than 2.2 million individuals who are incarcerated in the United States of America. Our education system, as it relates to programs that are available, they are programs that exist in theory, but not necessarily in practice. Right, so the programs that do exist, very specifically, are programs that aren't transferable into the workforce once individuals are released out into society. Especially if it doesn't lead to a certification, especially if it doesn't lead to any licensure, especially if it doesn't lead to any vocational door opening up for me, even on the apprenticeship level. How is that going to be a transferable skill in the marketplace here in society? That's kind of like the question that loomed. I did have a plan, yeah, but again, right, so I was proactive with my reentry plan. I think that what happens now is that you have a lot of funding. You have monies that are specifically earmarked and designated for reentry planning, and you have counselors, and you have these reentry personnel within the respective institutions. However, what does reentry planning look like, right? So what does that consist of? You printing out a resource off the internet and giving it to me, which takes all of about 20 minutes maximum, right? Or does reentry planning look like having those individuals from the respective communities that people are going to be released to, you putting me in contact with them so that they can provide me resources, so that I can put a face to those people, so that I'm not necessarily having a cold contact once I am released. That's what effective reentry planning actually is. Not necessarily just somebody sitting behind a computer, Googling something, printing something out, and then saying, here's your reentry plan. I would prefer that reentry planning would begin from the day of incarceration, literally from day one, right? Because this is a systemic issue. And oftentimes when individuals are incarcerated, they are not incarcerated on a singular offense. They are incarcerated by intergeneration and or transgenerational errors of thinking and through multiple offenses, right? So reentry should effectively begin from day one, literally on day one of incarceration, and not necessarily 6 months to 90 days to 18 months back. But again, right, the Department of Corrections throughout the United States of America, specifically here in Connecticut, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the personnel in order to be able to do that. So at least 18 months out from the person's release, there should be some very comprehensive, hardline reentry planning. So what does it mean for John Smith to be released and he is actively looking for employment, and you put him in front of a computer and you say, here, go on the American Job Center website, and this is what your job search looks like? What you consider, when I went to prison back in 2000, I went in when they had beepers. I came home and now they have smartphones. So how do you expect someone to actually navigate and have the computer literacy to navigate through different systems as it relates to websites, etc., when they don't even have that acumen in order to be able to do so? So the resources are there, but I think that the sociology piece and the psychology piece and also the social work piece is actually lacking, so that these people who are being returned back into our communities can actually have the wherewithal to be able to navigate through these systems. Lastly, I would like to say that those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but often furthest from resources and power. And what I mean by that is that if you bridge those who are closest to the problem, who can conceptualize a solution, if you bridge those individuals with lawmakers, with the brokers who are in positions of power, resources, influence, so on and so forth, if you actually bridge the two together, then you have effective reentry planning, then you have effective judicial oversight, then you don't necessarily have prosecutorial misconduct as it relates to excessive prosecution, etc. That's how we impact reentry. That's how we impact no entry, and that's also how we impact pre-entry.